Philip KISIA is a governance and leadership expert. He is a former very many things, but he's a current very many things as well. Philip, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. You forgot I'm a parent and a husband.
Oh, sorry.
And a
Very
Kenyan,
important.
and a taxpayer, and what else?
And a proper hustler.
Now everybody has become a proper hustler. Okay? Let's go with the times. Philip, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. It's good to see that Umelala Salam. I was with Philip last night in the studio.
Okay.
A full disclosure, Eric. A full disclosure.
Yeah, you want to use more words.
I wasn't bought dinner.
Usiwe hiyo ni mambo ya nyumbani bwana. Mambo ya nyumbani usitoe nje. Philip, looking at what we are seeing now politically, we have a president-elect who is going to be sworn in on Tuesday next week. By 2:01 p.m. Tuesday, we will have a new president in this country, a new deputy president. He'll have the full mandate to start forming a government and leading us for the next 5 years at least. Yes? And if you look at the headlines in the papers today, we're already starting to look at, so what do we expect to see in, so what are we going to call this? The other one was Uhuruto. This is Rugathi.
Rutogade.
Rutogade. Yeah. Or Ruchagua. The Ruto's government, Ruto's administration as it comes in, the members of the government, especially at that top level, the cabinet, and then looking at the other arms and the kind of influence that he'll want to have in Parliament, in the National Assembly and in the Senate, in the name of Speaker and leadership of the House, from leader of majority to chairs of the various crucial committees. All these things are now where we are, now playing that political chess game. Earlier at 6, when we were looking at the newspaper review, we were trying to put the pieces here and there and saying, can this one fit? Maybe not. Maybe we don't know. What do you see in your crystal ball? He has already promised that 50% of his cabinet is going to be women.
Eric, nothing is cast on stone.
Even promises made in daylight.
Nothing is ever cast on stone. So if you find that you'll be served better by more persons of the female gender in your cabinet, so be it. And from where I stand, I think women can do a better job. They have done a better job. And therefore, I think they should be given a chance. Some of these things don't even require a constitution, okay? But because of our bad behavior, we had to sneak in something in the constitution that requires that 30% must be of either gender, okay? But, common sense, decorum requires that, that you be fair. And that your appointments are based purely on competence, okay? Because you don't have much time. The clock would start ticking for William Samoei Ruto from Tuesday 2:01, okay? It looks like a long time. When Uhuru took over 10 years ago, it looked like a very, very long time. He was slender. Now he's leaving office, with a bit of weight. I don't know whether that is as a result of the pressure of the work, because that one can also be a contributing factor. But needless to say, I expect that His Excellency the President William Samoei Ruto will do what my favorite president did, the late emeritus Emilio Mwai Kibaki. Even if you want to put in friends in your cabinet or in your government, please, for heaven's sake, put in people who are competent, people who can deliver, and people who don't smell of corruption. Kenyans are not stupid. Kenyans, I know who has stolen public funds. So immediately you start associating yourself with people who have a bad record, people who have been arraigned in court, people who are pending cases. You know, even small children know that these men or women stole public funds, and you still want to associate with them. I think this is a time that the president must depart from them. You know, use the 48 laws of power and say, you know, we were friends when I was campaigning, but now I have a job to do. And I need people, men and women, who can help me execute my vision.
And who are clean.
They must be clean.
Let me remind you, Philip, that the president-elect has said, even as recently as Monday afternoon, that there was a lot of political persecution in the previous, in the outgoing administration. So many of his friends and allies have been wrongfully accused and labeled as corrupt. So we're starting from that slate. He's already showing us where he's heading.
You know, I mean, he's on the steering. He's on the steering. He's seated there. The honors is on him. If you've stolen public funds, there is no other word that can be associated with you. You are a thief. You are a thief. Whether you are appointed by the outgoing president or you are appointed by the incoming president, if you've stolen public funds, if you are a thief, you are a thief. There is no other word that can describe you. Period. You are a thief. And let us not go around in circles. Let us not start this ping-pong game. Yeah? We know who the thieves are. We know who are stolen public funds. We know them. We know who is incompetent. We know people who have been tested, tried before, and have delivered. We know people are clean. We don't need science here. We just need people to do the right thing. Let us have guts.
But
when Kibaki took over, did you see mediocrity in his administration?
In some cases.
Did you see? No, give me even one. I was part of that administration. Did you see mediocrity?
You see?
No.
Did you see mediocrity? So, in Kibaki's administration, he dealt with the mediocrity as it came. Okay? He never gave space for mediocrity.
You know,
so,
Philip,
yes.
Mediocrity isn't a constant that you can go to a shelf in a supermarket and buy.
Take a little bit.
No, it's something that is manifested often when people are given the opportunity to perform functions that purportedly they are able to. That's when you realize and say, oh, goodness gracious me. Perhaps, case in point, when we look at the governors we've had since we promulgated this constitution, since we devolved, many of them seemed promising before they took the jobs. Then they took the jobs and you wondered, how on earth did we think? You couldn't have known that they were incapacitated and that they were not able to perform until they got the jobs. When they got the jobs, it was clear. This thing is beyond them.
City.
Yes.
City, my brother.
Yes.
Wrong specking. You see, when, you know, how come private sector gets it right? Most of the times. If you have the right frame for the job, if you have the right job analysis, that this is the specification of the person we want, these are the skills we want, this is the experience that we want for that particular job. Okay? The only thing that can fail that person after assuming office is if the environment is not conducive. And if the environment is not conducive, the honorable thing is up on you to say, you know, listen, I know I can do the job, but the environment is hostile. And therefore, I tender my resignation.
Okay, Philip, you know, the discussion that you've now brought in is like we're comparing ducks to hyenas. And we're saying, ducks lay eggs, why aren't hyenas laying eggs?
No, city, we were just talking, city, we were talking about there's a job to be done. There's a job to be done. You don't give that job to the person because he's tall, or he's handsome, or he's ugly.
But what would be Philip, what would be the reasons why these jobs are being given to these individuals, or would be? I mean, understand that we're still playing or swimming in the realms of speculation at this moment, right? But we also see, how then do you play what you're saying vis-a-vis the promises that were made during the campaign season, which a lot of people are going to hold on to say that, look, should you deliver this to me, should you lend me your support, then obviously, at the end of the day, this is how I will then reward you. There were some people who came into the game with expectation to the rafters, knowing that should we deliver this thing in our backyard, should we do... This is what I'm going to get as a result of it. They've divvied up the government positions in their minds already. And such a promise, whether it was gentleman's or not, was made to say, when we get this thing, Philip, you will be my this. Now we are saying, we're bringing in issues of mediocrity, integrity, corruption. You told me that if I deliver, you will do like that.
Nothing is cast on stone, my dear. Nothing is ever cast on stone. And as a good manager, as a good human being, if you're decent, you're allowed to change your mind. You see, if you get into an aircraft, okay? I don't want to mention names, but a good airline.
And there you are, Kenya Airways.
And the pilot told you, you know what? I've never flown an aircraft. I've never even gone to flying school. The best I've done is a matatu on the road. Will you get in just because you bought a ticket?
But you know, the captain normally only
will you get in just because you've got a ticket?
The captain only speaks to you when you're already on the plane.
Yes, but you're allowed to. You're allowed to disembark.
Ladies and gentlemen,
you are
on this thing before.
You're allowed to disembark.
Let's enjoy the ride.
You are allowed to disembark.
Yeah.
You can disembark. I said, wait a minute. I didn't know I was getting into this particular situation. Please allow me to take my small ransack, like this one, and let me disembark.
Wait for the other luggage later.
Yes.
Okay.
So you only need to be a fool to remain seated. Disembark. So even if promises were made, and this is politics, we must take cognizance of the fact that some appointments are political. But you have 52 million Kenyans to choose from.
Right. So is it
52 million Kenyans? You want to tell me if it's about regional balancing, you can't get somebody from that region? If it's about friends, you can't get a friend who can do a job?
So are you leveraging hope, or are you on hope rather, that say, look, it is the hope that regardless of what was said before and who may be expecting what, that we are looking at 52 million Kenyans today upon whom you need to put a proper upon whose expectation has been placed on you. These 52 million to get it done right. So you're saying anything that we may have said before up until this point then now is irrelevant, and what we are looking at now going forward is making sure that we get it right. Is that what you're hoping will be in the mind of the president-elect?
I am hoping that he'll do the right thing. And that's the right thing to do. And you said it yourself, that promises were made. Those were promises. It's like when you are dating, you make promises. But when you get in, you find that this is the reality. So work with the reality. Don't work with the dream. Work with the reality. The reality that William Samoei Ruto is going to face is that the economy is doing poorly. Is that people have no jobs. Is that cost of living is extremely high. Now, if he doesn't confront those in the first 100 days or in the first year, people start getting desperate. And when they get desperate, you know what is likely to happen.
But I think, Philip, the first mark of what we are going to be able to judge William Ruto and his administration with and on is the promises he made and the attempt to deliver on the promises to the country and to individuals who represent constituencies. Now, you keep using those words, decency. If we have any sense on iota of decency, if you're a good person, of integrity. Now, what kind of integrity and decency would that be if we know publicly that you've been working with so-and-so and the expectation is that so-and-so would get this kind of position in your government, or would at least play a role in your government, and then you dump them immediately. You don't deliver on the most basic interpersonal promises made publicly. If you cannot deliver to Philip KISIA, whom you promised is going to be chief minister, surely how can you expect that you're going to deliver to the youth who are expecting a hustler fund?
Eric, we've always said, you, me, City, and my dear here, that this country has 52 million human beings, that this country is greater than all of us. What's the cost of sacrificing a few individuals for the better of this country?
Sacrificing promises.
This is a big, let's look at the bigger picture. Okay? The bigger picture is 52 million people. If there's one or two people that you've discovered, after getting intelligence reports, after getting feedback from, even from his village, that this man is a chicken thief, would you still appoint that person to any a serious portfolio?
Yes.
Would you?
Yes.
Would you?
Yes, because the chicken thief label may be just part of that person's resume. There may be other things that this person is able to do, and that chicken thief may be just a vocation that
Or
they
if
do
it's
on
a reformed
weekend.
chicken thief, they might be able to then point
Yes.
out other chicken thieves.
Yes,
and
but
that's the
if
person that you
and
want.
if they've never been caught, and yes, it is alleged that they're a chicken thief, then that person has qualities that you must look at and understand. The point I'm trying to make is this: I'm not saying that you should appoint chicken thieves. I am saying that when you're making decisions in a political arena, it's a little more complicated than that. The balancing act is not just this person has the academic qualifications, they have been in this job, they came from this job in the private sector. It goes a little beyond that, because you have a certain level of unity you need to, first of all, retain within the people who supported you. Let's start there. And then if you look at what you mentioned, it is a tradition that we seem to have developed in this country, reaching out beyond your immediate ranks to try and see if you can't work with other people who may not necessarily have supported you. There's always that. The regional balancing that you're speaking of, Kibaki made it obvious. In the days of the single-party state, it was easy. There was only one party anyway, okay? So you could pick and choose and place whoever you wanted, wherever you wanted it. But we saw what Kibaki did. All these forms of handshake, despite the fact that the president-elect, Dr. William Ruto, has clearly said to him these handshake things, I personally think that falls in the realm of political statements. There will be handshakes.
He's already doing handshakes.
Yes, precisely. There are things people say, and you must see them for what it is. It is a political season. People are campaigning. You want to show you're different. You will say things. You then have the position. You are now in power. A completely different ball game and a completely different reality.
So isn't that what Philip is saying then?
No. Let me.
That you've made a promise before, and that's okay. I've told you, Eric, deliver this thing to me. I'll make you the CS energy, right? Kind of thing. But then the reality then dawns on you later. Okay, with the campaign is over, we've actually won this thing. But I'm seeing a different situation.
I wanted to give you energy.
I wanted to give you, but
you
I
have no
can't.
energy to deliver energy.
Is that not what we're saying?
Correct. You see, City, I agree with you. That political...
see,
political
you agree with me. Is not agreeing with me.
Political.
Yes.
1 second.
Yes.
We are here as a team, and we are here to inform and share our wisdom, whatever you may call it, with the listeners. You see, I agree with you. Political appointments go beyond... your
academic qualifications.
Yes. Okay? There are many factors that you must take into consideration. That one I agree. Okay? And I'm not disputing that. The point I'm making is, within the promises that you made, are you telling me that there's no room for adjustment?
There's always room for
There's room for adjustment,
yes,
as you have just said,
yes,
even to accommodate your opponents.
Yes.
And say, I know when I was campaigning, I campaigned on the platform of Kenya Kwanza. All right? But to glue this country together, because the country is divided into half, 50-50. To glue it together.
It's divided into 3. But go on.
Okay.
Yes.
For this purpose, I think it's 2.
Yes.
Because we are into 3. Then we'll
because
talk about...
there are those who voted for either side, then there are those who didn't vote.
There are those who refused to vote.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm
But
saying,
when you refuse to vote, those are the consequences.
Yes.
Okay? You decide
you're not
you chose not to participate. You chose not to make a decision.
But the consequences...
So start suffering. You must start suffering from now. That is your business. It cannot be your business. So I agree. Political appointments, like cabinet secretaries, even principal secretary, I can tell you. That's why I've seen some, announcements that please send in your, and there'll be interviews. But now when they get deeper, there are many things I look at. Of course, the requirements as per our constitution, things like, gender, things like regional balancing, and, people living with disabilities, and so on and so forth. Before you get to the other requirements, is he a thief? Because if you have been arraigned in court, you are in court, any decent chief executive who is serious, because you're already being prosecuted, will not give you a job until you are cleared by the court system. Then you can be considered. But if I see, and that's my own opinion, if I see some serious appointments being given to characters who are already facing, charges in court, you'll not be inspiring me. You'll be telling me it is now business as usual.
The problem is here that the vice chairman of the interviewing panel has cases in court. Now let's start from that point. So what are you going to say? I can't give you a job because you have a case in court.
You see, no,
I'll tell you, but
Philip,
no, listen.
in this country, surely,
no,
are we not innocent until proven guilty?
No.
The fact that I have a case in court just means I have a case in court.
That is okay.
And that's why I started by saying, Philip, that if you remember what the president-elect has been saying, he is saying that what we have seen in the last 5 years is political persecution in the name of fighting corruption. That very many of the people that you see behind me here have cases in court, not because there are cases in court that ought to be there, but because of political fights. And going forward, my administration is not going to do those kind of things. My administration is going to presume everybody innocent. My administration is not going to just be hounding people to court or left, right, and center to prove a political point. My administration is going to do things differently, which tells you that consideration for what you have a case in court is not a strong one to feature in the interview.
Eric, I like what the incoming president has said. Okay? That he will not treat people unfairly.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. That if you've been persecuted because of your political alignment, that's something to review. If there's anybody who has been just taken to court, that CT was here, and because he aligned himself with Group A, okay, then of course use all the institutions you have and make sure that that guy is arraigned in court. But I thought that institutions in this country work. That by the time you are arraigned in court, and I've seen this, and I must say that DPP has done a very good job, Haji. I know for a fact, City, that DPP is the only one who has prosecutorial powers. He's the only person who can say, you know what, I am now convinced that I should take you to court. There are so many files that DPP has returned to DCI, returned to ESCC and say there are gaps. And until you fill these gaps, I'm not taking action. So if you tell me there are other institutions that have been used, like KRA, okay, that KRA does not in the court. They come, they say, okay, done ABCD, and they shut you down using the act, the same act that has been passed by Parliament. Because KRA, I can tell, is not acting out of the powers that they have. So if there's any mistake, then you start with the people who formulated that act. But I can tell you for free, by the time you see somebody heading to court, at least under Haji, by the time you see somebody heading to court, 95% iko maneno. So the only time that case will collapse again, because we're in Kenya, and we're all Kenyans, the only time that case will collapse is when the person prosecuting does a poor job. The person prosecuting does not even attend courts. Okay? The person prosecuting, does not,
does not line up witnesses.
Yes. So proper evidence. You frustrate the case. Of course, now the judge, and we blame the judicial system, the judges, the honorable judges and magistrates go by evidence. Are you there? Okay, this is it. Now, can we cross-examine you? And you're not there. You frustrate the court. Once you frustrate the court, the matter will, I can tell you, collapse. You cannot blame anybody. You can only blame now that system
that has been used,
misused
to defeat the court
to
of
defeat justice.
Let's take a break. It's 24 minutes to 10. Philip KISIA is a governance and leadership expert. He is a former town clerk of Nairobi City County. What did you keep telling me you are the first something or the last?
No, Eric, you know,
are the last,
I know it's painful, Eric.
Oh,
it's painful.
No, it's
sometimes.
not painful.
It's painful, Eric. But I am the last town clerk
There you
of the city of Nairobi and the first and last chief executive officer.
last town clerk, first and last chief executive officer
yes.
of Nairobi.
Yes.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The conversation continues with Philip KISIA, governance and leadership expert. We are looking ahead into the new administration, the William Ruto administration, the promises he made, keeping the promises, balancing the reality. Like City, you keep saying, there is that whole thing of what you're doing when you're talking about wanting to become president, and then you become president. And it's your first time to become president. And
Yes.
everything now, the weight of the office becomes real.
Those who are married will be able to draw a parallel. That delightful, lovely girlfriend, the sweet tea, becomes wife.
And
That
then,
handsome, delightful, tall, wonderful, poetry-spewing gentleman becomes husband. Then,
always called in the morning, the last person to talk to you at night.
flowers.
Right,
So-
Then this institution, which has a life of its own, called marriage, comes in, and you wonder, where did that person go?
So you're seeing the same thing.
With the presidency. And it's even trickier because I was alive and well when President Daniel Arap Moi left the office, and I saw people throwing mud at him. And I heard the ungracious speech that President Kibaki read. It was not a gracious speech, not gracious at all. Within a year, everywhere Moi went, he was being greeted as though he was the president. I observed all this. I also observed the coming in of the Huruto government and the cheering and the joy. And I also witnessed the very backyard of this same president turning and saying things that I thought I would never hear anyone say about not only a president, but their own son. I saw. These are instructional things. To those who vote and to those who want leaders, the book of 1 Samuel chapter 8, you carry on, gives a very long story of what happens. But I'm mentioning two things. There was a gentleman called Samuel, he had sons, but those sons of his were wakorofi. And the elders of Israel said, you know, these sons of yours are not walking in your way, so we don't want, they can't come after you, so give us a king. I said, hey, well, king, tricky this. Okay? Because king, as far as we Israelites are concerned, is God, really. He said, no, give us a king. He said, you know, a king will enslave you, will take your wealth, will do a whole list of things. However, that's what you want. But you've been told, this is what you have. So when you have leaders, the thing you ought to do for these leaders more than anything else, instead of doing the Kenyan thing of looking for ways of criticizing them, you want to pray for them, because that's what, as I said, those who subscribe to the Christian faith, it's what you are required to do, and for a good reason. Because of the things I said, when you get into power, the things you come across, even if someone had told you, it's a very different thing from being told and from you experiencing it. They need help. They always do. And criticism is not really it. Looking at ways of pointing out things which are wrong, as opposed to a critical spirit where everything is wrong. Even when good things the roads are being built, we don't see the roads. Okay? The dams are being built. Which dams have you built? Anyway.
Where are the laptops?
Yes.
I built dams. Where are the laptops?
Yes.
I've built roads. Where are the laptops?
Okay, I brought laptops to these schools. Where are the stadiums?
Tall order.
It's going to be a tough one for him. And not just him as well, actually, if you just look at the executives, the governor as well, Johnson Sakaja in Nairobi, you have been boss of Nairobi, you know balancing the interests of Nairobi. Just think about Sakaja now coming in.
At different time, the problems have just multiplied as the population has also multiplied. And then you promise. We asked the other day, the thing that we started off with, Johnson Sakaja sat where you're sitting and he told us very clearly, feeding program. We said, feeding program. He said, feeding program. We asked him, Johnson, feeding program. He said, feeding program.
All schools.
All
schools.
All schools. All children in all
Johnson,
schools.
all schools. All schools. Say, okay. Brother. Sawa. So here we are.
Yeah.
Plan. I don't doubt he meant what he was saying. He meant what he was saying. He was being sincere. Now, reality.
Would you, taking that off, Philip, put in the same category as saying, look, we made these promises in the throes of a campaign, right? Your heart was in the right place in terms of what you wanted to do. Your heart is also in the right place when you're telling your cronies, look, guys, deliver this thing for us in your little, backyard. I have every intention of making this work for you. The reality would then slap you in the face. Would you put it in the same category? I said I'm going to give everybody in Nairobi schools, free lunch. I said I am going to give you this position should we get this thing. Would you categorize them in the same manner?
The reality check is going to set in less than 100 days for most of these characters. Because there are certain promises you make. And those promises, when City and myself were growing up, it was easier to cheat, to lie to us. It was much easier. Because we were not informed. There was no internet, there was nothing. There was nothing. In fact,
it would take 3 years before the lie was discovered.
Yeah. But now, you speak a lie. You speak a lie. And within seconds, people can tell you lied.
Yep.
So, I agree with you because if you say my nephew Johnson was here and he made such a good proposal to feed our children, because I can tell you, where we live as a church community, because we fellowship at Modangari Primary School, and when the church realized that those children who come to Modangari Primary School don't come from within the vicinity. Yes, they come from far and wide. They come from, low end
lower
of
income
the society. They leave their homes at 4 a.m. to walk to school. No meal in the morning. Not even, strungi. You're taking strungi city, not because you cannot afford, but probably because of it's healthy for you. Not because you cannot buy milk. But those people cannot even afford strong tea. Yep. What we used to call strong tea. Okay? Now, Sturungi. Now, they're in school, there's no lunch. They're going back home. The possibilities of getting a meal is very low.
Yep.
So what did we decide as a community? That we shall contribute money, Nairobi Chapel, Lavington, and feed these children. At least give them something during break hour and lunch. That is done by the church. The church also decided that those who cannot buy uniform, they'll be uniformed by the church members. They also have come up with scholarship programs that those children from those communities who cannot afford fees, whatever fees there is to be paid from primary up to secondary school, up to university, is paid by church members. So, and I can tell you, it is not a small task. It's not something that you can just, ignore. Now, for Johnson, my nephew, to have made that promise, he should have consulted some of us. Because when you get in, he'll discover. And I'm sure he must have, because he's a fairly intelligent fellow.
Yep.
he must have asked people, yes, how much do you collect? What are the chances that we can double revenue in the first 2, 3, 4 years? How much are we likely to get from the national government? And what are our needs?
Yeah.
Then you know what is left. Because I can tell you, the first thing that he'll be confronted with is the debt level at City Hall. When I left them down at 11 billion from 14. Now I'm told it's about 70 billion and above. Okay? And more than half, actually about 60-70% of that is statutory deductions. Not paid, not remitted. From the time Evans took over, not remitted.
Yeah.
And you know, they acquire...
They're deducted,
not remitted. So it is interest and penalties. Okay? So that will be the first thing that he must deal with. And I can tell you, those statutory bodies, they have a law that protects them. They'll just put garnish orders on the accounts. So you cannot access money. So first of all, you negotiate with them. Now they decide how much money they're taking from you. And then what you are left with, you have salaries to pay. Whether you'll be left with any money for development, leave alone feeding children, you only need, you not only need our prayers, you need our prayers, City. Yeah?
Plus a harambe.
You need harambe. You need God's intervention. But I foresee a lot of resentment. I feel sorry for the people who are getting into that space, because it's not going to be easy. People overpromised. And, people are smarter than when we were growing up. They will actually hold you to account.
Yep.
And as the City is saying, I felt terrible. An old man leaving office. He has served for 24 years. He had some successes. He had some failures. And I'm on record, and I said, the way we have treated this old man will one day, as a nation, be haunted with regret. Now, Uhuru has come. There was celebration when he came as a young man. He's stylish. Now he's living with a lot of disgrace. And people don't want to see him, apart from Philip KISIA. Not that I'm a beneficiary of Uhuru.
And if you were, would you tell us?
I'm normally very open. I'm very open. Even when I visited William, now who is going to be the president, one day, and he said, my brother, put some fuel in the car. And I went public and I said, I've got some. I got a gift. So I got a gift. So there's nothing wrong when you get a gift and appreciating a gift.
Absolutely nothing wrong.
So, but anyway, let's get back to serious business. There's going to be a lot of challenges that the president will face in his administration. Whether he'll be able to navigate, I don't know. But I think it will depend. And that's why I started off by saying that it will be very incumbent upon him to ensure that he has experienced people
around him
to help him navigate through. And then he needs to have good advisors, not sycophants. People who will put him in a room like this one, people who are probably older than him, not sycophants, not people who want to, to benefit from him. They lie to him like those who are lying to Uhuru, and I can see them on social media. And I said, but this bugger, sorry for using that word, is a beneficiary of Uhuru Kenyatta. Yeah, this is a beneficiary. He got a job. He didn't deserve the job. He didn't even deserve the job, but he was given the job. He got business. He has made millions or billions. He didn't deserve. But now they are on the front line accusing and saying nasty things about the outgoing president. So we need to be careful when you're holding public space. Because right now we're celebrating and you're laughing at Uhuru Kenyatta. Your time will come. And we will do worse things to you.
It will be the same. Or
no, worse.
You see, once you set in motion that particular trend,
Yep.
just like we set in motion a situation where we may not think so. What I have found depressing, literally, no, not figuratively, is how we've gotten to a point where we have accepted as normal things which we shouldn't. It is okay if somebody makes money in a way that is clearly wrong. It is okay if you have a governor who clearly clears the coffers of state and doesn't really do what they said they would do. On paper, they've done it. When you go to examine, you find nothing. It is okay if people have a certain salary and yet their wealth has no relation whatsoever with the wealth, it is considered okay. And it is okay if people of that nature lead. Now, that is a depressing problem because it will also have consequences, very dire consequences. Now, I'm not being an naysayer. I'm just saying anything that anybody who has eyes can see. It is a problem. Now, the president has a task of putting some of these things to an end and saying, folks, look.
Enough is enough.
Yeah, this is what we have. But look, we have a country to run and we have situations. We know why we are here and how we got here. We need to turn this tide, and this is what we are going to do.
100%, I agree with you. And he must start from day one. When I said he has to make hard decisions, he must start now. But if he makes hard decisions at the tail end of his first term, he will not be re-elected. But if he makes them now, people start getting used to saying, you know what, we must
this is
now
the new way of
doing business. You know, it is going to be painful, but in the long last, we'll all enjoy the fruits of our labor. But if he says, okay, let me accommodate, everybody, let me be good, like Uhuru did, let me be good, let me, and then he tried to work in his second term, and then people felt a lot of pain. Because people felt pain, there's no money in people's pockets. But I can tell you from where most of us sit, I'm not saying he's the best president that we had, but there are things that he has done that will impact on this country 5-10 years from today.
That's very true.
I'm not talking about, the issues to do with how they were procured, the cost and what have you. City, when Moi was busy building universities, you remember?
And schools.
And hospitals.
Yeah.
And people are saying, this Mzee.
Nyayo Ward,
This Mzee never went to school. Why is he even building universities? Now, not only have we utilized all the universities that Moi built at a more than 100% capacity, but we need more.
Yeah.
That we even have private people who have invested in institutions of higher learning, but they are not even enough. You can imagine if Moi, and may the Lord, good Lord, rest his soul in eternal peace. You can imagine if that Mzee don't have that vision. That we need this,
these remittances we keep talking about happily. That is a Moi child. It is Moi's.
It's how come we ended up there.
Yes.
We've got to conclude the show today. In coming days, of course, we'll be reviewing the Uhuru Kenyatta years, the Uhuru Kenyatta presidency. As he says goodbye to the country on Tuesday morning, this will spend a couple of days and we'll invite you again.